So, without further ado, you can tell us a bit about yourself, the company, and then your architecture.
Okay, no, awesome. Yeah, thanks for allowing me to chat to everyone. Super pleased to share what we're doing at Tripplo. Yeah, as Rihanna said, my name is Amor. I'm tech lead at Tripplo, and yeah, I'm interested in all things AWS and bleeding edge. So that's like serverless technologies, GraphQL, and yeah, a big fan of JavaScript as well. So yeah, wherever I can, I try to use JavaScript as much as I can when the problem allows. So yeah, let's dive right in. A bit about Tripplo. We were busy creating a new standard for African road freight, and how we go about doing that is by using like deep expertise in logistics to create technology to basically provide a solution for all of our customers in the logistics space. So we're doing that by creating a tool, a loads marketplace that allows you to get spots and contractual loads as a transporter. And then we also optimize operations for cargo owners and transporters to ensure profitable and efficient delivery of their goods across SADC. So our transporters have like a Swiss Army knife, or if you could call it that, of logistics tools that allow their entire fleet to be managed, as well as plan potential trips that they might embark on. And then yeah, for 2021, according to Fast Company, we were selected as the most innovative company. And then currently we're part of the Shell Foundation for their mobility program. And then last year in Africa Arena, we were nominated as the best startup in Johannesburg. So yeah, that's a bit about Tripplo. And then our most recent impact was due to the unrest in KZN. A couple of transporters offered to put their trucks on our platform for free to take goods down to KZN. So yeah, we were really pleased to be able to be a part of that and help those who were affected by the unnecessary looting that affected KZN. Cool. So into the main stuff. So this is basically our architecture. So what we have here is, so basically we've adopted a microservices approach. And then what we do with each microservice is it's connected to GitLab, which we then use the serverless framework to provision our infrastructure. Cool. Then, oh, sorry. Oopsie. Cool. So yeah, we adopted a microservices approach. So each and every single microservice that gets deployed on our AWS account ships with all this infrastructure beforehand. Well, just a quick question: do I need to zoom in for everybody, or can everybody see?
I think it's fine. I did post there in the chat that we can zoom with the mouse wheel. And then we can zoom, but I think the guys on the browser can't zoom. So yeah, I think zoom as much as you can, but
okay. What I can do is I can go to Miro, and then we can do that. Exactly the same thing. So basically, what we have over here is I've split everything up into their various like categories, if you will. So under networking, we use all our backends are served through API gateway, and then for each backend, we've configured a subdomain based on the stage. So for dev, it will be dev-API, and then our domain name. And then all of that is served behind a CloudFront distribution. And the same goes for our front end, our React front end, which is hosted on S3 as well. Each and every stage has a specific CloudFront distribution, so that obviously when we push deploys into the various stages, we can easily invalidate the cache automatically based on each deploy. And then like the bedrock of our entire architecture is AWS Lambda for compute. So we only have like one EC2 instance, which is for something really specific that doesn't get used often, but almost like 99.9% of all our computing or our API layers basically are used with AWS Lambda, and then all our lambdas are exclusively connected to various Dynamo DB tables, as well as when the need arises, we store most things in S3. And then to be able to monitor our lambdas, we have CloudWatch over here, which we use to be able to do like extensive monitoring and also to get logging information. And then actually, quite surprisingly, there are many SaaS products out there that sort of like have come into the market to help you monitor your lambdas. But Rian actually wrote a fantastic article a couple months ago explaining or debunking the myth that you actually don't need to sign up for most of these SaaS services, because CloudWatch actually comes with a lot of tools out the box to give you like absolutely first-class monitoring on all your lambdas and other services as well that can be hooked up to CloudWatch. And then for authentication, we use AWS Cognito. So the way we sort of use AWS Cognito is we sort of just use it for storing the passwords and the unique ID, a unique identification information on a particular user. And then we have a auth service. Its exclusive role on that side is to actually copy the data from Cognito. And then if we need to store any specific information on a specific user, we rather just store it inside a particular Dynamo DB table. And then we have that coupled with AWS Lambda to just get information around a particular customer from a microservice, as opposed to hitting Cognito directly. And then after that, so we've got like an for our application and integration related tools. We use SQS for the queues, and SES for emails, and SNS for notifications. So at any given time, if we need to communicate with other services, we just chuck the data into a queue that would most likely be hooked up to a Lambda function that would exclusively, for instance, send out emails for whatever reason. So like a use case for that is when customers register on our platform, we publish their registration information into a queue, which then gets published to another Lambda that would send us an email to get notified that a new customer is registered. And then we've got the same pattern across various use cases for transactional related use cases, like when a transporter has requested a load, or when payment is due, for any matter of those type of use cases. Then with regards to SNS, I found it quite useful to use SNS for delivery notifications, to know whether an email or a text message or whatever transactional related use case has taken place. So it exclusively tells me like the sender's address, and then basic sending statistics. So I found SNS quite useful in that regard. So a word on Dynamo DB, right? So because it's like a SQL, a NoSQL database, you obviously have there are like a lot of things that you got to consider upfront. Like how are you going to get specific data around joins and everything. So with that, you actually have to pay a lot more attention to the capabilities that it has from like a secondary related indexes and your GSIs. So I found that particularly useful. To give you an example, with DynamoDB, you can make scans, which basically get all the records from your table. But obviously, from a costing perspective, that's gonna knock you out. But then also at a certain when your table reaches a certain limit of records, you've got to write extra code to be able to fetch all the records out of the table. So to counteract that particular problem, you can rely on a global secondary index where you can prioritize a particular set of fields to actually get a particular set of records. So there are a bit of gotchas when using DynamoDB. It's extremely it fits the serverless use case perfectly, but when hitting like certain use cases, you can come up short. And then also a word on like why we've opted not to go the relational route. That's purely because from a costing perspective, I found that it costs a lot more to set up a particular instance on Aurora as opposed to being charged for the data transfer to and from DynamoDB or being charged for the read and write unit. But I'm happy to be proved wrong as well if anybody from the audience has other experiences around that. Then yes, so I'll jump back into the presentation because I've got a slide regarding trade-offs. So regarding the trade-offs to our architecture, I think my biggest pain comes when it's time to do analytics or any data science activities, because like the lifeblood of a startup is to know actually how well everything is actually performing and how you can relate it to business performance. So at the moment, because I'm like a one-man team at the moment, I've been outsourcing most of the analytics and data science activities to a tool called Retool. So either I can directly hook up our APIs or directly hook up DynamoDB, and I can just basically write queries against our tables to actually to bring back to create dashboards like business intelligence dashboards. So I think the correct way to do it would be to set up streaming capabilities to hook it up to Athena and Redshift and all those fun things. So in the future, data scientists can use whatever other tools they like SageMaker, to actually get insights from the data that all our microservices are creating. And then secondly, debugging can be a bit of a pain. So you need to have like a clear upfront strategy as to how you're going to approach debugging. Usually some people opt to just leave console.log statements in their code, but that can get pretty expensive from a CloudWatch perspective because you can easily break through the free tier. I think it's about 5 gigs that you have that can be dumped into CloudWatch, and then the more storage you take up on CloudWatch, the more expensive that can be. So yeah, debugging is a bit of a pain in with this particular serverless architecture that we've implemented. And then lastly, like your testing strategy needs to be well rehearsed and really clear up front. So obviously unit tests are great, right? But in like a microservices architecture, most services depend on actions or data from other services. So when deploying a fix or a bug or fixing a bug, you've got to almost be like precise into how you're going to test to make sure that the data that's coming out of a particular microservice is not affecting other microservices, because then you get unhappy customers. So yeah, those are 3 of the major trade-offs that I've come across while adopting this architecture at Tripplo. And then lastly, I've plugged some resources around, well, the first 2 are just general tutorials on how to go about building serverless apps. The third one is a book by someone who works on the serverless framework team about DynamoDB. So everything I've mentioned about the secondary indexes and how to actually plan up front for how you want to model your data in DynamoDB, that book is really like a fantastic tool to take you from like a novice to like a world-class expert. And then lastly, I've also put a serverless GraphQL starter kit that we use internally at Tripplo to spin up new GraphQL microservices on AWS. So yeah, that is Tripplo's architecture.
That's pretty impressive. And I think I've seen a company like fully invest in DynamoDB and just stick to it. Most of the time, they choose some sort of a RDS, Postgres or MySQL or something. But your pain points are interesting because I was actually going to ask about the analytics because you want to get all of that data out somehow. And yeah, so you said that you are using like doing it manually and exporting it and then importing it somewhere else.
Yeah, so if I can quickly, let me just escape here. We're using this tool called Retool, basically. So I'll even just sign in and just give you an idea. So basically, at any particular given time, we need to know like how many loads were uploaded onto the platform by cargo owners and brokers. So this is quite nifty because it comes baked with a whole bunch of components that you can just drag and drop, and then you can write custom JavaScript. So like for instance, this query here, I'm able to just chuck in our one of our APIs in and do a GET request. And then the second query here, I can just write plain JavaScript to manipulate the data how I want it. So the simple app here is just to be able to do like a simple date range picker, and then know how many loads were uploaded between those two dates. So once the query is done, we get all the data, and then I mean you can export to CSV if you want, and then yeah. So basically that's how we've approached doing like getting insights from all the data that we get out, in addition to linking up to Mixpanel and all those other I think it's Mixpanel, a bit of Google Analytics, and then we use another tool called Clarity from Microsoft to record sessions and other analytical data. But yeah, that's how I've gone about solving that pain point for now.
Can I just have a question here? I'm not so sure how that's going to scale once you have lots of data.
Yes, definitely. It's not. So yeah, like I said, I'm the only engineer at the team. So how I spend my time and everything is quite precious. So I can't validate to say to my gaffer like, look, I want to do X, Y, Z for data wise, but at the same time we need to push out features into the market to acquire new customers and attract investors as well. So 100%, I'm in the same boat as you. Keeps me up at night. Definitely will not scale. So yeah, once the team gets bigger, we'll be able to invest more resources into making things a bit more professional or efficient rather, that can scale. Yeah.
No, it's not a bad solution. It's actually a quite clever one for where you are now. So well done.
Thanks.
Can you just circle back to your comparison about CloudWatch and you said CloudWatch is efficient for you now?
Yeah, sorry, I can't hear you there.
You mentioned CloudWatch. You compared CloudWatch to other monitoring solutions, right?
Yeah.
As of now for your solution.
Yeah, so I don't have the names of them, but like over time, they keep popping up of like alternative monitoring solutions to one of them would be Status Page. So I'm sure you guys all use like massive apps that have Status Page that's powered by Atlassian. So it basically gives you a status for all their services or whatnot. So basically, I think Rihanna's just posted the blog in here. So basically, from that blog post, you can go about replicating the same sort of dashboards internally in CloudWatch, because it also gives you metrics on 400s and your 500 related areas as well. So with that, you can sort of develop your own internal health dashboards to know whether something is failing or not.
Okay. Thanks, man. I love the solution. Good job.
No, thanks, man.
Who else has a question? It's now your time to ask.
Well, I just have a comment. I think you'll be wrong about the price of DynamoDB. but that's up for grabs. We got the freight in Cosmos and Azure, so maybe you'll get to the price point where it doesn't make sense. Paul, I don't know. You have a lot of experience with that. Did you also find the cost of the Dynamo DB to be high?
Yeah, at the moment I think we're paying just under $100 maybe for Dynamo DB, but I've read some horror stories of it skyrocketing to like ridiculous levels due to poor optimizations or poor modeling. So yeah, I think that's my biggest worry, is that obviously some of these services were developed in a rush, because as you all know, as developers, business puts some intense pressures on us to make unicorns out of nothing. So yeah, I think down the line I'll probably feel the pressure, and then we'll have to make a decision as to what's the best approach. However, I do think we're going to come into like a roadblock from an analytical perspective, where I don't think from an analytics perspective, DynamoDB is going to work so nicely if you're a data scientist, because many of them like getting data from like relational tables or databases rather.
Are you using provisioned concurrency, or are you doing on demand for DynamoDB?
I think it's on demand, yeah.
So it probably will get like less expensive once you have enough traffic and actually switch over to auto scaling. It might get cheaper then.
Okay, I hope so. But I did speak to someone from AWS, and then I think on Tuesday they mentioned that like our workloads are still a bit light to be worrying about optimizations right now. So yeah, so that was sort of like a good indication to know that I still got the green light to continue what we're doing now for the time being, till we expect really cool. higher volumes. Yeah.
Last question, if nobody else has. Sorry, Paul, you can go.
Okay, thanks. Are you guys using DynamoDB Streams?
No. So I've been thinking about figuring out what would be the best use of that without particular use cases.
Okay, yeah, because that could significantly reduce the number of calls you have to make to Dynamo if you could react to changes in your database. I've used DynamoDB in a serious application, but I've never used it as a primary database.
But yeah, no, it's something I need to seriously consider. Thanks for that.
I think on the Dynamo, sorry, cool talk, man. Thanks, that was cool. I think on the Dynamo Streams thing, I think another thing that could be handy there for you were chatting about the analytics, is enabling Dynamo DB Streams and then streaming the changes to the database into something like Kinesis, something like Firehose. And Firehose can then dump files for you into S3, which you can then query with Athena using SQL.
Okay, no, that's brilliant.
So that's something that we've used in terms of a serverless kind of way to gather some analytics, because there's not, you can still use your Dynamo and you can still, keep on doing what you're doing. And maybe it's enough for the next phase or to get you started. Just enable Dynamo DB Streams and send the stream to Kinesis, to a Firehose that dumps files in S3, and then you can run SQL on it with Athena.
And how long did it take to get that setup running on your guys' side?
I think the first time we did it, it took a bit of figuring out, right? But that also was like a year or so ago. So I think maybe the stuff has become easier. In the meantime, there's maybe a little bit more documentation around it here, these days. If I remember correctly, the thing that took us the longest time was CS was just the fields in the records that go to FireHose. FireHose is very finicky. If it's not exactly right and not exactly in the right order, then nothing loads. Right. So I think that's something to keep in mind. If you see things magically not doing anything, I would start looking at, does the schema actually exactly match what I'm putting into the FireHose, because it's quite finicky there.
Okay, no, awesome. Thanks for that.
Okay, and just the last question, like, where are you running this? Is it in the South Africa region, or is it still on EU-West?
No, because when we launched, it was like late 2019. So I think the Cape Town region had just only launched in early 2020. So everything's in Ireland.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've just found that it's like ridiculously fast here in South Africa. If you actually deploy all of this here, it feels like a native application. And I was wondering if you are also in South Africa, because what we did for our company is, like, I moved most of the stuff over in December, and then we left Cognito there, and then the ACS as well. But we could actually shift everything else over.
I see.
And it's extremely fast. It feels like you are running a native desktop app almost, like 80 millisecond API calls.
Stupid question. Because you have resources in two different places, I'm guessing you're still obviously able to communicate to all of them just fine, given that you've got stuff in Cape Town and in the original region as well.
Like, the cool thing about Cognito is that as soon as you've like authenticated, you get a token through SDS, and then that token is valid everywhere, because it's like it is an IAM token, so that's a global service. So so we are basically just getting that token in the EU-West1 region and then using it everywhere. And we haven't had problems so far.
Okay, no, that's brilliant.
Okay. Anyone else? Going once?
I don't know, where would be the best place to chuck the link to these resources? Just in the comments, eh?
You can drop it there. I'll also share an email or something with the audience tomorrow, maybe, when we're done.
Okay, Jesus, not copying over the link, so let me just do that as well.
Paul, do you want to go ahead and share your screen so long?
Yeah, I can do that. Screen.
Like, yes, Dirk, you are right. AWS, like, the AF South, the one region, is more expensive, like at least 15 to sometimes 30% more expensive. But sometimes your workload needs this low latency, and it's also like a requirement for some companies and industries. So then it's worth it, and they don't actually care about that extra 15-30%. That's worth it for them. So.
Yep, and the more people that move, the lower the cost will be. So let's move.
Yes, that's what I also say. Or already being here.
Yeah, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So
the second talk is going to be by Paul. Paul he's the co-founder of Cloud and Things, and he's going to first tell us a bit about Cloud and Things, and then himself, and also his architecture. Sorry for interrupting you, Paul. You can take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Rian. So when Rian asked if I would do a lightning talk, I took it a bit literal. So please don't blink, because it's going to be a quick one. So like ClickOps, I hate it, and I want to show you guys how we, within our company, how we catch it and why it matters to us, and then I'll show you the architecture. Just a bit about myself, Paul, co-founder and technical director at Cloud and Things. We do consulting, mostly in the AWS space and mostly for banks. I'm a dev. I'm passionate about software development, cloud, crypto, and I've got an electronics background, so I tinker a bit. And then occasionally I'll write a piece of code. If guys want to reach out, my email address is there. Feel free to do that. And if you want to on social media, follow me there. And then at the bottom, it's a bit small. There's a link to the repo where you can find all this code. And if you want to deploy it in your environment, you're more than welcome. So, like, why I don't like ClickOps? So I'm a bit of a Terraform fanboy, and most of the big mishaps I've seen in cloud, like the really big ones, is a lot of it can be it directly correlates to people clicking around in the console, doing things in ways that are not repeatable. So I very early on in my AWS career saw some really bad stuff happening in accounts where a bunch of really good developers had long nights to try and fix stuff that was changed in the console, and no one actually knew how to fix that. And while learning AWS, I found it very handy to code things out, share it with my team members, get some feedback on it, and then go back to the drawing board. So for me, it's not only for like when you build something, make sure it's coded out, make sure you can deploy it across accounts and across regions if need be. It's also personally for me a learning tool. So like the first thing I do when a new service comes out, I see if I can I Terraform it out, or can I use the CLI if the API isn't there yet and it's not in Terraform yet. So personally, I think like there's actually there's nothing bad that can come from infrastructure as code. And ClickOps, I think there's really nothing good that can come through it or from it. And they are the edge cases where something is breaking and you have to fix it, and it's very quick to get your app back online. By all means, I think you should do that. And that's also part of why I built this, that in those scenarios where you have to go into the console and you have to click around, that we keep track of what you did, so that we can go back and sync up your code with your with the environment. So to doing a bit of a post-mortem after an event like that happened. Also, we manage many accounts, so I want to make sure in our estate that all our accounts are being, like, applications are being deployed the right way, and that our clients are getting the best out of us. So what this looks like, it's a really super simple. We use Control Tower, but this applies to anyone with a landing zone, or if you've got a multi-account environment, you don't have to use Control Tower, but we use Control Tower to provision accounts. Each account has Cloudtrail enabled in it, and that Cloudtrail, the Cloudtrail logs get synced to or get sent to CloudWatch in the account. The retention period on those log groups are very short. I think ours are 2 weeks, which is perfect for what they are, or for why you would want to use them. But they also get pushed to a central account into a bucket, and all our accounts live in that, or all our account logs for all regions live in that central bucket. Unfortunately, Control Tower configures that bucket for multiple types of logs, and the way they group it together is a bit annoying. But at the end of the day, you've got a central bucket where all your estate logs live in, which is quite handy. So initially, when I built this, I thought like maybe hooking into each account, having something that listens in the account for the events would be cool, and it would be much quicker. Like it would pick up the events much faster. It doesn't have to go to S3 first and get some notification there. But like deploying this across many accounts, it's just another thing you have to maintain in the account, and this is not like some business critical thing that needs that like that real time feel to it. In fact, like Rian actually made a good comment a while back on this thing, that there's even better ways to do this from like a batching point of view. Processes you can run that at the end of the day. So this is the environment. We've got a few accounts, and I want to like look at the Cloudtrader logs. And what I did, and this is it, like this is the full extent of it. In our archiving account, so that's the account that Control Tower uses, in that central bucket, I set up a bucket notification, and that like Control Tower pushing all the logs into this bucket is really annoying, because I can't just filter on Cloudtrader logs. So I get Cloudtrader logs and I get config logs. And I just asked for all the logs that's JSON and that's zipped, and on an object created event, it will fire. So that gets pushed to a queue. That's kind of a pattern I follow without actually thinking about it anymore. But the reason I did push this to SQS specifically was that I could do like tiny batches. Our environment is not that busy that we get a ton of traffic, or that there's a ton of logs. But should it, like as it picks up, like I can increase the batch size so that this thing doesn't become too spammy. I've also found like duplicate entries in CloudTrail, or in these logs, that you could then catch, like group them and send out like a batch notification. So that was not the idea when I built this. Like I said, like I kind of do like this pattern in my sleep, but that's something I could do. Currently, I haven't configured batching on it. I think it's default 10 notifications, or 10, in this case, 10 objects that's created. So it will grab 10, send it to Lambda, and then send the notification. So from there, hooking up a Lambda to SQS. And then there's like a really, really simple, it's a super simple Python Lambda. And all I do is I look for these, like these are the patterns I'm looking for. So from a user agent point of view, like if it's the console, if it says it's the console, it's the console. There's a few user agents that's also used by the console. And I didn't come up with this. This is there's a cool article that I'll send on, where someone did some research to see what are console the console user agent and the typical events. So first I see, like, does this event come from the console, just purely based on the user agent? It's not always that obvious. Then, like, there's a few events, like event patterns, like, certain events are read-only events. That's cool. Like, people should can totally use the console for checking their resources. Don't want to restrict that. So if it's a read-only event, ignore it. Something I want to add in here, I actually only saw it the other day, is there's an optional field in Cloudtrader Logs that says the action was a read-only action. So that's obviously the first thing you would want to filter on. And then there's some additional events that are read events, and that's okay to run in the console. And then I've started capturing new events that wasn't in the initial articles the guys wrote. I found a few extra events that's being triggered that I don't want to get notified on. So like SSO logins and logouts. I saw a logout this afternoon. IAM, like simulate policy, is one that gets triggered, and that's actually also only a read-only event. So there's a few things that I want to that you don't want to push to, you don't want to notify people on. So from there, I hook into Slack. We use Slack internally, but it's just a webhook. The only reason I didn't make this generic is like Slack is quite specific on how you format the message and how you make, like, if you want to make it look a bit pretty. So if I had wanted to do this for Teams as well, like I would just have to do like different styling. But at the end of the day, it's just a webhook. So this pushes the messages to Slack, and in Slack we get a notification that looks something like this. This used to be called our this used to be called shame ops, but I felt that's not cool. So let's stick with ClickOps, and then we'll get an alert like this where it says someone created a policy in an account. It will give you a link to the log, so if you want to go inspect the logs, it was me, and it will give you the Cloudtrail event, so you can inspect the event, and right there you can see, is this something I need to be worried about? Is it not? And if it's something that should be excluded, just add it to the list of events that are allowed. So this is pretty handy, and I've gotten some really good responses on this toy I built for us, where some of our banking clients are saying, well, this is something handy to know about our production accounts. Like, no one should be clicking around in a production account, and if they are, we want to know about it. So there's actual some actual practical applications outside of me being pedantic about infrastructure as code. And this is maybe part of something bigger that I want to build, where we push notifications directly to developers as they're busy in the console. So let's see, like, maybe there's something there. So yeah, that's my, what's that? What was that? 10 minutes? Not even lightning talk.
Don't stress about the time. That was very interesting. I'm also like a big advocate of infrastructure as code. It's also great because it almost documents whatever you have, and then it's easy to move between different environments and accounts. There's no manual interaction needed. That you can just throw it in a pipeline and let it go through. So infrastructure as code is very cool. Yeah,
exactly. And you're spot on about the documentation. If you've got well-written infrastructure, then you really don't need separate documentation. You can do everything right there in the repo. That's very cool.
Okay, so now it's time for questions. I'm sure there has to be a few.
Hey, Paul, nice stuff. This looks awesome. Quick question about the queues. Are you guys using like a standard queue or a FIFO queue? Standard queue.
Okay. It's like this is we're not really worried about the order, and I mean CloudTrail, each service writes to CloudTrail at its own pace. So you can't, CloudTrail won't guarantee that the order of CloudTrail events or the order in which the actions actually happened. So this isn't super critical that the order. Yeah, actually, we don't care about the order. So yeah, this is just a stock standard vanilla queue. Yeah.
And then just to understand, like the business side, you're just using this internally, and this is just like an MVP for cloud things.
Exactly.
Okay.
This is not for a client or anything. This is just internally for us, keeping us honest.
I see, yeah, because the only issue I see with like the Slack webhooks or the Teams webhooks is like eventually, like if you're in like a large team, that specific channel where you're publishing all the webhooks can get like massive. So like maybe it would be cool to like be able to filter by specific events in like a UI or something. But yeah, obviously if it's fitting your use case for now, then it wouldn't make sense.
Yes. Yeah, so something I want to look at is being able to pipe events based on account to different Slack channels or different teams groups, because it doesn't make sense to get all notifications for all accounts on one Slack channel. That would just get be noise and people would ignore it.
I see. Yeah, but brilliant.
Yeah, Paul, next thing is you need to write some code generation again so that you can copy and paste it out there and just put it back into Terraform, right? And we can just click and click and be done again.
I love that. Definitely.
Well, we have a question from Dirk there. He's asking if you saw a significant reduction in shame ops after introducing this tool.
I'm very fortunate that our team is we're like-minded. So this was something we built just to watch our accounts. But I do think this I don't like the idea of shaming people, but I do think this is good to highlight when this happens. I can imagine that in a bigger organization, this could be a good tool to motivate people to not click around in the console. So yeah, this could also be like for us, when I see this thing going off, when I start seeing notifications, I almost like clockwork. It's someone struggling to get something right, and they are going to the console and making changes quicker than you could do with like coding and deploying the whole time. So you could reach out to someone and say, okay, looks like there's a problem. Can I help? So yeah, definitely, I can definitely see that this could help reduce the amount of clicking happening.
Cool, Paul. Yeah, I mean, this looks really great, man. I've always wanted a read-only mode for the console, right? And at our place, we've tried to do it with roles and this and that, power user access and whatever, but there's always, those IAM roles are just so complicated that we never can figure out what is the right set, because to have read-only access, I think, is key, because like you also mentioned, you need to be able to see what's going on, of course, right? Mm-hmm. But this is definitely something I'm keen on trying. So you mentioned in the beginning that basically what it does is you consolidate all the Cloudtrail logs into a single S3 bucket, and then the magic happens from there, right? So yeah.
That's it. So I assume you guys have a multi account environment. Yeah. So you can, like your Cloudtrail logs, you can ship it to a central bucket. That bucket must just have sufficient, like the bucket policy must just allow it. And it's a dirt simple bucket policy. So and once it's in that central bucket, you can use this code as is. It'll work.
So from there, it goes into the bucket, object created, SQS, and then the code takes it from there. And if it matches the regex, it posts to Slack. Perfect.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, dirt simple.
And you've got control tower there, but that's the way that you guys provision accounts at your place, right? We're not quite there yet. We just sort of still create the accounts through organizations by clicking.
Yes.
Okay, but the theory is will work for us. Okay, awesome, great.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So this is like I should actually take control tower out because it's completely irrelevant to the solution. Yeah. It's just to this. That's just how our Cloudtrail gets configured and set up automatically.
Awesome, man. Nice. Thank you, Paul. Looking forward to trying this.
Yeah.
Cool.
Give me a shout.
So yeah, why haven't you used organization? Just like.
What are you? Because Control Tower is basically organizations on steroids. So it provisions the accounts for us. It does all the baselining that we would in any case do. So enabling Cloudtrail, it does that for us. It gives us it set up a few controls for us and does some like aggregating of data that you would in any case do, and you don't pay for it. It's free. So if the account is quiet, you don't pay for the stuff, and if the account is busy, you would have paid like that amount for Cloudtrail in any case. So I don't, like, for us, there's no just using organizations. This is for us, like, just, it makes a bit more sense. I would actually recommend it for everyone, even if you, as a developer with your own personal account, set up Control Tower. I think the total Control Tower bill a month with all the bells and whistles isn't even $5. And then you can start playing with SCPs as well, which is, as a engineer in AWS, understanding those things and the IAM policy evaluation logic and all that. You can test all that good stuff. Obviously, you can test that with organizations as well, but this mimics an enterprise environment quite well. So yeah, and like, we've got SSO hooked up to our Google Workspaces, so whenever someone joins our team, or we've got someone we want to temporarily give access, we can do that, and when they get offboarded again, the access gets revoked. So we're a small team, so the JML is not a big thing for us, but we get it, so I would say no thanks.
Okay, thanks, man. Really cool ideas.
Cool.
Paul, just a note on that S3 Lambda pattern that you mentioned.
Yes, sir.
So I'm so, like, I think you're doing it unconsciously, but like, there was a very good reason to do that, Ritus, just because if there falls 10,000 files in your bucket, it would have sent or like tried to invoke 10,000 Lambda functions at the same time. So that SQS is there for a buffer, and even before that, when you couldn't do the SQS where you could just do bucket to that Lambda function, there was still like a very slight chance, like 0.5% to 1%, of S3 actually dropping the ball and not notifying that Lambda function. But that has been sorted for, I think, for about a year or two now. So all events that fall in a bucket gets you a Lambda. But there was like a scenario where a few would have just gotten lost or something. But yeah, like, that's a very good pattern there to protect yourself from getting a ton of Slack messages at the same time.
Yeah, and it protects me against my own code. If my code starts failing, it'll just hopefully pick up the messages from SQS a bit later.
What's also interesting, if you do get like a ton of events at the same time, you can probably just disable the SQS and Lambda function integration, and then all of those events can be backed up, and you won't flood your Slack. You can probably look at them, clean them, or do something with them.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm interested to deploy this at a client where the accounts are a bit busier, to just see like how this behaves, and are there better ways to group notifications.
It might be cool if you ever go from Slack back to your Lambda function, but then you have to store some state. For example, if somebody then sees, okay, no, the Slack is flooding, then they can do like an action or something to switch off your SQS Lambda. That could be cool.